Hello and welcome back to Paranormal NL podcast, located in Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. That's PNL podcast for short. I'm your host and founder, Jen Noseworthy. Thank you for tuning in to UPRN, United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 FM on that Gulf Coast. For tonight's UFO and Humanoid Encounter special on UPRN PNL segment number 54, I've got a guest tonight waiting backstage from Maine, USA, who I'll bring on shortly. Now it's time to grab your favorite drink, a few munchies, and get ready for the UFO show tonight. Paranormal NL podcast is sponsored by the Bog Team. It's a boots on the ground Bog Team doing historical paranormal investigations in Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. Bog Team music heard in the PNL podcast intro and exit is available for download on all social media and streaming platforms. And follow PNL podcast and the Bog Team on all their socials and Linktree Paranormal NL podcast. Check out their merch and smash that subscribe button. Tune in to UPRN every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for PNL Podcast with a live chat watch party. PNL Podcast believes in supporting international paranormal networking and highlighting global paranormal people, places, and things. Now, let's get on with the show. Tonight, I have all the way from Maine, we've got author Nomar Slevik. Welcome.
Hey, Jen. Thanks so much for having me back.
Yes, definitely. Welcome back. You were previously on, before I joined UPRN, you were on season 2, episode 32. And then you were on season 2, episode 143. I guess I was busy in season 2.
I'm a three-peat.
That's right. So yeah, you were on UPN actually segment 2. So welcome back. It's great to have you. And since I've had you on, I do believe you've got a few new things to talk about. But now for the folks who don't know who you are, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm Nomar. I'm a writer, researcher, sometimes investigator of all things paranormal and anomalous and strange. And Maine is my backyard, and there's a whole ton of stuff that happens in the state of Maine that's very strange. So the state keeps me pretty busy. So I have been almost solely focused on the strange stories coming out of Maine. I have, on my own podcast, I've dipped into global stories, and in some of my writings, I've dipped into New Hampshire. But the majority of my professionally published work is Maine-based, and again, there's no shortage of strange stories. So that's a very quick version of who I am and what I do.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of dabble into everything. You're a bit of a musician too, no?
Yeah. I have fun with most things creative. The audio medium has been a lifelong love affair, and I started loving hip hop music back in the 80s. I was very young, but I was enamored with Public Enemy and Beastie Boys and Biz Markie and Big Daddy Kane and all these guys, and that love just continued to grow to this day. And even this year, I put out a couple of new songs. So I'm very excited about still working on music well into my 40s, and having fun with it all.
We'll have to check that out. Now, this one here, the dark vinyl record, is that part of your music?
It is, yeah. And that's a few of my singles that I put together on a 7-inch vinyl. And 7 inches can't fit too many songs on it, so it's just like 2 short songs on the A side, and I think it's 3 short songs on the B side. And they come in clear and white vinyl, and it's just a lot of fun making hip hop. Yeah.
So tell me, what the heck is going on in Maine? I know everybody's been talking about nowadays all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah, well, first of all, the birthday of the man, the myth, Stephen King, is just around the corner this month, and they're doing like a street party in Bangor, Maine, and Bangor is what the town of Derry, Maine, is inspired from, and
Oh, that's
Derry,
where it is. Oh,
yeah,
that's a
that's where it
spooky
comes.
place with
Yeah,
kites and the balloons. Yeah.
yeah.
So tell us more. Are you going to go to that, or is there a lot of people going to that?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to it. It's not sanctioned by anything, Stephen King
Right.
related. It's just like a few local businesses and some, civilian volunteers that are kind of putting together this street party, which will be kind of fun. And I'm sure there'll be some like swag that you can only get there. That's always kind of fun. The Bangor Public Library will do something like that every once in a while, and you can get like a dairy library card, at certain times.
Fun.
Every
Yeah, I
yeah.
always
So
like to talk about the paranormal tourism aspect of it
yeah,
too, right? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
Maine's got a lot of stuff up there.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, so much
They
stuff,
must
and
have because you got a lot of books about it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I am one of a bunch of authors that have written about the strange aspects of Maine. So I'm by no means unique in this state and sharing the strange stories. My specialty, at least I like to think so, anyways, is that I try to find never before published stories that I can share. That's not always the case. So I will take some stories that maybe just had one news article you know 25 years ago, and I'll share that as well and try to find out as much information that I can.
Yeah,
Hopefully I
because
can
you're a
like interview a
researcher
witness.
too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that's a great part about being an author is actually, being a researcher too. That's a ghost calling me. I got to tell him leave me alone. But I mean, when it comes to research, do you have like a favorite story that you've researched and just totally dove into it and got lost in it?
Oh geez, I think there's been a bunch of those. Did I tell you the frog people of Maine story?
Frog people? No, I don't think
No.
so.
Okay.
Tell me about that one.
So I'm a huge fan of the Loveland Frogman. That's out of
Okay.
Ohio. It's a famous cryptid out of Ohio, and that story starts in the mid 1950s. And it was this anonymous businessman driving, although his name, some people have associated a name with it. I don't have the info in front of me, but there is a name that is associated with it sometimes. So it depends on who's telling the story. But he was driving along, following the Little Miami River in Ohio. And while he was driving, it says that he saw these three humanoid creatures on the side of the road. And in other stories, they're actually on top of a bridge, and he's driving under the bridge and he sees them sitting on top of the bridge. But
Okay.
either way, there's three of them, and they all look like they're like 5 foot tall bipedal frog men. They're naked and just standing there, and one of them is holding like this metal cylindrical object, and it has since kind of become synonymous with a magic wand. A lot of people put to it. So
Okay.
you might see some depictions of the Loveland Frogman like dressed as a wizard and holding like a magic wand, and it kind of all stems from that. And
Do you think it might have been a wizard who got turned into a frog?
oh man, maybe. That's certainly possible. So, anyways, he's driving. He sees these three creatures on the side of the road. One of them's holding this metal object, and sparks is coming out of it. And
Okay.
that's basically the story. And then, like a couple of months later, I think it's in the Little Miami River, but like on the Ohio side of it, this woman was swimming with one of her friends, and she claims to have been pulled underwater by something. And to her, it looked and kind of felt like, as she was struggling, that it was like this humanoid, like frog like creature, kind of something akin to the creature of the Black Lagoon. And she said, like, after the struggle and she got free, she surfaced, and there was a green handprint on her knee or thigh, and it lasted for a few days. And so
Well,
that kind of
that's weird.
sparked that. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that sparked like this legend in Loveland, Ohio, and that has been turned into like some paranormal tourism. Now, in
Okay.
the in the 1970s, two cops, one in particular, claims to have seen this Loveland Frogman and actually fired at it. And
Really?
he had a partner with him, and the partner uh, 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 agreed with what the situation that happened. Like, he was a witness and said, yes, this actually happened. But in the following years, they recanted the story. Then they said, no, it is true. Then they recanted it again. So it's kind of been all over the place with that cop story. Then in 2016, I think he was a college-aged kid, and he saw something walking like waist deep in the Ohio River, in the Little Miami River, sorry. And to him, it looked like this bipedal frogman type creature. So he took video of it, and you can look it up on YouTube. And he didn't do anything to the video, but other researchers have taken that video and lightened it up and have taken still frames from it. And it looks like a frog creature walking in the water. So
there's this frog creature walking in the water. This is so weird. And the green handprint? Did she say or anything about it being slimy, like you would think a frog is?
It stained. I don't remember about sliminess, but it stained her, and I think there was a tingling sensation for a little bit afterwards. Yeah. So I'm a lover of most things cryptid, and I'm a big fan of the Loveland Frogman. So I wondered if there was anything like that in the state of Maine.
Right.
So over the years, I've done research here and there. I never really sat down and spent hour upon hour upon hour looking into it, but I would search here and there. But then on Thanksgiving in 2024, so just last year, I was doing research for my latest book, Humanoid Encounters, and I was like, okay, I need to find a frogman story. And I happened upon this YouTube video of this other Maine author who has since retired. He's not publishing books anymore. He's not writing anymore. But he put out this book like 15 years ago, 16, maybe 17 years ago. And it's about Maine legends. And I even remember being in a bookstore like all those years ago, thumbing through it. Like, I wish I had bought it at the time, but I was thumbing through it. And anyway, so I'm watching the video, and it's a video about him promoting this book. And he says, this includes a bunch of different strange stories. And one of them, the frog people of Maine. And I was like, whoa, what? You've got a story about the frog people?
Tell me some more.
Yeah. So like I rewound, I double tapped the screen, friggin' rewound it. And yeah, frog people of Maine. I'm like, oh my God. So I keep listening, and it's called the Remick case is what he called it, the Remick case. So after that, I Googled the Remick case, Maine, frog people. And it turns out in 1915, a book was published in Maine called Maine in Verse and Story. And it was published, or it was written by a gentleman named George Cleveland. And in it, there's poetry and stories, but there's this one story that reads like a true story, and it's called The Remick Case. And it's about this gentleman who was about 25 years old, and he lived on a homestead with his mother and his siblings, and his father had recently passed away, like in the last few months. And so he was in charge of the homestead at this point. And he loved going to fishing on his days off. And there was an area near the homestead where he would go. I think it was called the Pleasant River. And there was this other body of water that was further away called Devil's Lake. And his father and other people in town always told him like to stay away from Devil's Lake. Weird stuff happens up there. So his father's been passed away for a little while now. And he's like, you know what? I want to go up there and see what the hubbub is, And so one day he does, and it's this beautifully pristine area, and there's, a mountainous area, and there's ridges, and it's just beautiful and untouched. And he had the best fishing of his life. He caught a bunch of trout and went home, and his mother's like, oh my goodness, like all this fish, this is amazing.
And then he's wondering, why is it called Devil's Lake, though? Like, why that
right?
horrible name? Right?
Right. So, he does the fishing trip and comes home. Everybody can't believe how much fish he caught. And a couple of days later, he kind of like can't get the lake out of his head.
Oh no.
He's like, oh
Okay.
boy, I got to go back up there. So he does, a few days later, and he catches a bunch more trout. And then he starts to become obsessed with the lake. He can't stop thinking about it. And
Okay.
he begins going every day. And it gets to the point where his mother is like, dude, you're not keeping up
You're
with
obsessed, dude.
yeah, you're not
Stop
keeping up with
bringing
your
home fish for
responsibility.
supper.
We need some other meat.
Right? Yeah.
Dear Lord, we need other meat. Anyway, so his mother's like, you're not keeping up with your responsibilities. And he's like, oh my God, you're right. I'm so sorry. I'll do better. But he doesn't. And he goes again to the lake the next day.
Okay.
And he never comes home. And
Ooh.
this really concerned his mother. It's getting really late. And so she walks to the neighbors, and the neighbors are like 2 miles away.
Right.
So she walks to them and explains what's going on. And so her and those neighbors then walk like another 2 miles to the next neighbor's house. They explain the situation, and they all can come together as a search party looking for her son. They go up to Devil's Lake and they find his fishing pole and his catch for the day. And I think they find his hat, but there's no Silas Remick. That was his name, Silas. And there was no Silas. So this devastated his mother, and searches went on for weeks, and he was never found. He never came home. So about 5 years later, this New Yorker moved to the area, and he hired this local fisherman guy to like help him run his homestead and do some work on other properties that he owned. And they became pretty fast friends. And the New Yorker guy was really interested in the paranormal. The Mainer wasn't that interested, but he wasn't opposed to talking about it. So
Right.
the New Yorker's always bringing up paranormal stuff. And one day he's like, there's gotta be, this area is so strange. There's like a vibe here.
Yeah,
And
yeah, there's
like,
something going on here.
is there some sort of strange story from the area? And the Mainer was like, the only thing I can think of is that this guy went missing like 5 years ago. And so he tells them like everything I just told you up to this point. And the New Yorker is like, well, if you're not afraid of the paranormal, what say me and you go up to Devil's Lake and have a look around? And the Mainer was like, yeah, sure. So the next day they go up to Devil's Lake, and they're, assuming they walk the same path that Silas did, and they bring their canoe. And once they get up there, they get into the water, and neither of them had been there. And they're like, oh my goodness, this is so beautiful. And they're just kind of canoeing around, and they see the ridges and everything. And then there's this splash in the water kind of in front of them a little bit. And they're like, whoa, what the hell's that? And they look, and there's like this jar or bottle or something floating in the water. So they reach the paddle out and bring it closer and grab it out of the water. And they open it up, and there's a note inside. And it's kind of wet. So they, paddle over to the banks, and they get off, and they put the note on the rock so it dries. And after it dries, they read it, and it's a letter from Silas. And he explains that when he started going up to the lake every day, he started to notice these men standing off in the distance. And they had these spears or staffs or something with them. And they were just watching him, but they seemed like they were like a mile away, standing up on this ridge watching him. And he's like, well, if they stay over there, I'll stay here, and everything's fine. We're each minding our own business. But as he kept going, they kind of kept getting closer gradually, day after day. And
I
that
wonder,
day,
were they kind of like shadow man or like pet
well,
man? They
he
like to
said,
like stare at everybody and not do anything.
well, yeah. And well, as they got closer and he could get a better look at them, he could see that they were like the size of a good sized man, but they had the faces of frogs, and their skin looked kind of different. And
Okay.
so that was concerning, but they were keeping his distance. So, and the fishing was so good, and there was some weird draw for him going. So like he couldn't help himself going, even if he did become scared, he still had to go to the lake every day.
There was
So
something that kept drawing them back to it.
yeah, exactly. So in the letter, he's explaining that the day that he vanished, he was walking home, and he was just about to go on the path that goes back down to the river away from the lake. And these two creatures jumped up in front of him in the path. And they took him by the arms and they led him to the edge of the water. And just before they entered the water, he passed out. And he wakes up and he's not sure how long it's been, but it's kind of dark. And he realizes that, like, he's in this room and his breathing's kind of labored, like he's breathing pretty hard. And he's like, this feels weird. And so he can see that he's in this dark room, but it's got this little window. And through the window, he can see it's lighter out there. And he can see all these other frog like people swimming about, almost like it's this little underwater town. And he realizes that he's breathing hard because he's underwater. Somehow
I
he's
was just
breathing.
going to ask you that. Is he
Yeah,
underwater?
he's
Yeah.
underwater. And he realizes that he doesn't know how, but he's breathing underwater. And every once in a while, these two frogmen creatures come to his dark room, unlock the door, and they grab him by each arm and they lead him outside. But soon after, he passes out. He never knows where they're taking him. But he passes out in varying times. So sometimes he's out of the cell or jail cell or whatever he's in for a little while, and he can see sometimes that there's lightness above him. So he thinks that they might be closer to the surface of the water when it gets light. So he had this piece of paper in his pocket, and he also had a pencil, and he found out that he could write underwater, and he wrote this letter.
I was going to say, like, how could he write that if he was
I know.
gone? But now that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, so
But
he
you're
writes
making
this
me
letter.
think about the sea monkeys. Yeah, when you were, when you were a kid.
I mean,
Okay,
kind of
so
similar.
Yeah, so he's there, he's underwater, he's writing all this down. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he's writing down his whole story, and he figures that when they take him out of the cell, and if he can stay awake long enough and see the lightness over him, he's got this jar with him. It's an old jar of pickles. That's what he would eat for lunch or for snacks when he went up to the lake. Okay. So he stuffed the note in this jar, and he figured he would release it when he can sense the lightness above him, and hopefully somebody will find the letter, And that's what seemingly happened when the New Yorker and the Mainer were paddling. They figured that Silas had been underneath them right at that moment when the jar popped up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, because he said he could see light. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in the letter, he basically, and he tells this whole story, that I'm telling you now, and he basically says, "I don't think I'm ever coming home. Please tell my mother I'm very sorry. And hopefully someday the frog people will let me go." And that's how he ends the letter, like, "God help me" is I think the last line. So, after reading this, the Mainer and the New Yorker, they're kind of like, well, that's pretty crazy. And the New Yorker believes it, the Mainer doesn't. And he's like, this is just a big hoax, like he either drowned
his
or
clothes was there too, they found, or something.
They found like his fishing pole and his fish, and I think his hat, Yeah. So that's basically how it ends. They find this letter, and the New Yorker believes it, but the Mainer doesn't. And unfortunately, the mother had passed away already.
Oh no!
So they could never tell her what happened. But it doesn't say in the book whether they went to the Remick family, the Silas Remick family, and told them what they found. Like his siblings. So.
Right, that was going to be my another question. Like, did they go in the lake and look for him, or what is down there? You never know, right?
Yeah, they did not say if they investigated further. I think they found the letter, and that was good enough.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really cool humanoid encounter. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different other ones. So, like, why is it always related to the water? Like, what is your theory on that?
Generally speaking, especially along with folklore, the unknown can generate a lot of lore stories, scary stories. So the unknown is a really good catalyst for what's happening around us. It's a good way to maybe help us feel better about, this happens in the unknown. And if I don't go near the unknown, which is, this lake that I shouldn't go to, then I'll be fine. Everything will be okay. But it's cathartic to read about these things or to watch these things happen to somebody else.
It is. We got to give a shout out to your friend here, Dave.
Oh, yeah, Dave Schrader.
You're on a lot of different podcasts. Everybody knows you're around the circle.
Yeah.
And we all love your work. So
thank you.
I know you've got a lot of different ones. On this one, the strange, I'll pull it up here. Is this a mashup of a couple books, or is this one?
It is.
Okay.
It is, yeah. I think I was in between books, and I wanted to put something out there while I was working on a book.
Yep.
And I wanted to put something out there that would be like cost effective, because you have all these titles and, this book's 15, this book's 20, and this book's,
stuff for people to chew on. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of different ones. And this is one of your older ones. It's kind of hard to see it, but you can mention that one.
Yeah, so I put 3 of them into one volume, so people could buy 3 books for like basically the cost of one, and so that was kind of fun to put together. It was my first 3 books on the UFO phenomenon, and I thought that would be a fun way to get them all out there for people that missed out on some of those titles.
And you talk a lot about, some ghostly stuff too. Like this one is They Only Come Out at Night. That's ghosty stuff.
This one is actually horror fiction. I love to write, and I love to write nonfiction, and I do like to write fiction. I've actually been writing fiction my whole life, like since I was a kid, specifically like horror stories. And so that's a book of short horror fiction that I put out in 2021.
2021. And here's a picture you were talking about earlier in Maine. Yeah. Tell us about this experience. That must have been fun.
Sure. Yeah, that was really interesting. The producers of the show, Expedition X, reached out to me and said, hey, we're going to be in Maine, and we're up there to dive into the legends and lore of Stephen King history. And, why is the town of Bangor, Maine, which is Derry, Maine, why is the town of Bangor so creepy? Why did this inspire so many stories by Stephen King? And can you share like some stories? And so, I met with them on Zoom and told them, a bunch of stories that were related to Bangor. But I do have my own story at a Stephen King landmark, and I'll tell that story tonight with you. But I have my own story at the Stephen King landmark, and this was an area where Stephen King would go and write some of his first works. And it was this park, and there was a water standpipe that was there, which, feeds the town water. And he liked to go there and write. And I was there late at night, maybe 15 years ago now. And I was there late at night. And while I'm there, I see this really weird humanoid figure like walk jankily into my field of view. Like they were walking like just really weird. It's hard to explain, but maybe like a zombie kind of.
Okay.
So like their arms were up and they were kind of shaky a little bit.
You had a heebie-jeebies, something not natural, right?
Yeah, it was definitely not natural. And I'm like, what the hell is this? I'm like, oh my goodness, this is somebody on drugs. They're going to kill me. You just have all these dumb thoughts,
right? Because the humans are worse than the spirits.
Absolutely. But the closer I looked at it, they looked a little young and they looked really dark, and not the color of their skin. It just seemed like, I don't know if it was like shadow person-y kind of, but I could also see them too. It's hard to explain, but they walked really strangely, and they went to the door of this standpipe, and the standpipe is huge. Okay. It's like this massive, thing that holds, 150,000 gallons of water, And there's this door there, but it's locked. It's not like anybody can just go in there. And my headlights are pointed at this door. And this thing stands perfectly in between the door, in between my headlights against this door. And it's kind of, it's kind of like popped up like this. And he's like, oh God, I don't want to be seen type of thing. And then it like jankily walks away. And I thought I saw this movement to my left, like out my driver's side window while this was happening. So I looked quick over there because I'm like, oh no, is it another one? So I look and there's nothing. And I'm like, okay. So I look back to where my headlights are and where the door is and where this thing was, and it's gone.
Hmm.
I'd only turned my head for like a few seconds, you know? So I'm like, where the hell did this thing go? I
What
don't
do you
know.
think about the theory, Nomar, of like, we're paranormal people, we're looking into the paranormal, and when we talk about paranormal, it's humanoid creatures, it's UFOs, it's ghosts, it's everything, right? Esoteric. Do you think that looks back at you because you're looking at that?
I think it's certainly possible. I think it's a good theory. I don't know for sure, obviously,
It
but
was kind of like, hey man, like I'm here, like
yeah,
you can see me kind of thing,
like
right?
sometimes, I do wonder, especially when I'm sky watching and I see something, up in the sky, a
Have
point
you
of
seen
light.
something intelligent like flash back at you? Because we get a lot of people talking about that when they do their CE5 events. They
Yeah.
get stuff flashing back at them. Do you
I,
find
I
or have
haven't
you encountered any of that?
I haven't gotten the flashbacks, but there was this one time I walked out of my apartment, and this was probably 10 years ago. And I looked up and I saw this perfect formation of stars that was a triangle. And like I just looked up and immediately saw it. Like sometimes you look up at the night sky and you're kind of overwhelmed with all the stars, but I
Right?
just very easily focused on this triangle. And I'm looking at it as I'm walking. I'm not really thinking anything, but a second later, one of the points of light takes off and just goes
Hmm.
at a straight, steady line. And I watch it until I can't see it anymore. The other two lights stayed where they were, but it was almost like it saw that I saw it and it's like, all right, I'm getting out of here, type of thing. That's, I'm sure that's not what happened, but that's what it feels like sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different things going on in the sky, and you've got. I had this one up, UFOs over Maine. You recently had your anniversary for this one.
Yeah. Yes, I did. Uh,
Congrats!
yeah, thank you. Um, I put out the original one in 2014, and it probably took me like 6 to 8 years to write. And, I'm doing that through, different relationships, different jobs. And, I'm working on it very, very part time. I also don't know or didn't know what the hell I was doing. I mean, I still kind of don't, but I really didn't know what I was doing then. And so finally, after like 6 or 7 years, I had this manuscript and I had my dad look over it because he's a retired teacher. And so he looked over it and, made a bunch of corrections. And then I tried to figure out how to submit it to places for publication. And I sent it out to a bunch of different places and I kept getting rejection letters or I didn't hear anything back. And so one day, one publisher did get back and said, hey, we want to put it out. And so that was like in 2013, I think. And that was a whole process. And it finally came out in 2014. And it was a big deal for me. You could walk into a Walmart or Target locally to Maine
And see your
and
own
buy
book,
and
yeah.
yeah, and buy it. That's pretty cool. And I had a
No,
publicist and they got me on a bunch of different radio shows and, cool stuff like that.
yeah, and this one here, UFOs over Maine military bases. How many military bases are there in Maine again?
Oh, geez. For active military bases, I think there might only be like one. There might be like a couple of satellite places, here and
Yeah.
there. But back in the day, we had, I think, three major ones back in the day, and one of them had nuclear weapons.
Okay. Are you familiar with the Dark Sky Association?
Dark Sky Association. Maybe that does sound kind of familiar.
So you know how when you have light pollution in the major cities when you look up,
Yeah,
well, some cities are into this for wildlife and that, but for the cities like who are more rural, Maine does have some rural cities or areas. Do you find
absolutely.
that because of the less light pollution, it's easier to see them?
Yeah, I do.
versus a
And
huge city? Like, do you think that's some of the things why people are seeing more in Maine? Not because of the military bases, but now you did make a point about the N word, and I won't say it because the last time we talked about the N word, we got kicked off stream. So, and when I say that, it ends with R, nuke. So,
what are you doing to me?
but, but yeah, I think there's something to do with the skies. Like,
Yeah,
stop
yeah,
it, Omar.
yeah.
I got you going now. But what is your theory on that, though? I mean, I really think like where I am, it's totally rural, and we can see all kinds of stuff going on, like the aurora
Yeah,
borealis and
absolutely.
all kinds.
Yeah, I think when you're in a rural area, it's a lot of times people take it for granted the pristine night sky, but it really makes it easy to notice things. And
Yeah.
a lot of people just like to sky watch naturally and not to
Hmm.
like go out to specifically sky watch for like an hour, but just like you go on your nightly walk and people are looking up and watching the stars. And, a lot of people in my experience in Maine specifically, a lot of people are looking up as opposed to down at their phones. Now, don't get me wrong. All of us are looking down at our phones a lot, but you go on your nightly walk or your daily walk, or for me, it's a daily bike ride. And, I'm constantly sky watching. The sky's just beautiful. And you never know what you're going to see. But I think rural folks definitely look up more than most.
Yeah, I definitely think there's something to it. And I'm going to add this to the stage. We got to give a shout out to Mike.
Yeah, Mike
And
Stevens.
yeah, and I've had him on the show before, Mike Stevens. He was on season 2, episode 33. And
Yeah,
you got to check out his granitesky.org for abductees. Now, did you want to talk a little bit about
sure.
this book? Because
Sure.
it
So,
must have really inspired you about his story to write a whole book.
yeah, it really did. So I first met Mike. This was a while ago now, probably not too long after UFOs over Maine came out. So probably 2015, 2016, something like that. I met Mike, and he invited me down to New Hampshire to speak at this center that he was involved with, about UFOs, and I would be able to like sell some books after and all that good stuff. And people would whisper, you know, uh, like, hey, I know Mike invited you out and you're sharing some stories and you got some stories from other people, but have you heard Mike's story? And a lot of people were telling me that. I'm like, no, I guess I'll have to ask him about it. So the next time I came down, Mike was like, hey, let me show you this picture that was taken on this property that I'm involved with. And it was a trail camera picture. And it's a picture of a funnel of light coming down over a deer.
Hmm.
And there shouldn't be anything above it, making that cone of light shooting down, this beam of light shooting down towards this deer. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's a crazy shot. I'm like, well, tell me more about this. So he shared with me a few stories, and he and I were getting closer as friends. And so we would talk on the phone a lot. And we ended up having like this 2-hour conversation where he told me a lot about his stuff. And I was like, dude, we should do something with this story, because he knows I'm a writer and I also make documentaries. And I was like, I think your story would be great for a book. And he thought about it and I thought about it, and he decided that we should tell a story. He's tried to do it himself a few times, like to write everything down, but it's a lot. It's overwhelming, and it's his own story, so it's sometimes you're too close to it when it's your own story. So I ended up having like a couple of more long form interviews with him, and he ends up telling me his entire life story. And since birth, something has been extraterrestrially involved in his life. And so fascinating, but really sad and really scary.
It is scary.
It
Yeah. I
was, yeah,
mean, when
these
you say that.
experiences. Yeah, these experiences were very traumatic for him. It's not like they were fun or cool.
No.
So it was a lot for him to deal with. It messed up parts of his life, and it even got to a point where he wanted to end his life at one point. He's in a much better place now and does not feel that way. He's actually engaged to be married right now, which is amazing. And
Yes, that's right.
yeah, she's really
Congratulations to
lovely.
Mike.
Yeah, congrats to Mike. I actually met her for the first time this past weekend, and she's lovely. And so I'm really
That's
happy for them.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, in a nutshell, Mike has had ongoing abductions his entire life, and it started in infancy, and strange stuff is still happening to this day. So the book covers a lot of it, but there's while there's like 40 encounters documented in this book I wrote about him, there's probably 100 more. We just couldn't tell. We couldn't fit everything.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. And it's not
Yeah.
just, a lot of people think, oh, it happens once, but no, like it can happen multiple times, like you said, to the same
Yeah.
person and whole families.
The whole family's, yeah. And once he started to become vocal about it, which took a while. He was like in his late 20s or something. I forget the information now, but it's in his 20s is when he started to finally like come forward and accept what's been happening to him, and he started talking about it. And that's when his family opened up, and they're like, oh well, this happened to dad, and this happened to grandpa, and this happened to your uncle. And he's like, why didn't anybody talk about this?
Right.
Because he'd been struggling internally. And so it was
I had to throw up his site. It's called Granite's let's see, granitesky.org, and it's for abductees.
That's right. And he conducts 2 monthly meetings for abductees to get together and tell their stories, and to tell their stories in a safe place, and for each other to offer help with one another. And yeah, he's doing some great work, and he's helped a lot of people deal with their own abductions. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when you buy the Granite Sky book, you can get a bundle. What's Hole in the Sky?
That's just the soundtrack to the book.
You made it. Is it yours?
Yeah, it's some music I put together for it, but I think all that's sold out at this point. But yeah.
Oh, okay. But back to the Granite Sky services, it really is great for a lot of people who are having these problems. Because I've had a lot of other folks on the show. Like I can give a shout out to some other folks like Karen Wilkinson. She was in Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest, and she was back in season 2, episode 38, and she's had some really scary experiencer things. And Vicki Joy Anderson about her sleep paralysis, and season 2, episode 94. There's so many different ones. I've had Nancy Thames on Time for Disclosure, season 2, episode 98. Now we were talking a little bit about like CE5 and stuff like that. And I know I had Tony Rodriguez on season 2, episode 99, and he got into a lot of like remote viewing and stuff like that, which was really interesting too. But I mean, I can't even go through how many different people I've had on about UFOs. It's such a hot topic.
It really is. And, and the hearing just happening yesterday,
right,
was fascinating. They showed some pretty interesting footage. It still bothers me to this day when Jeremy Corbell is attached to a lot of this stuff. Like for me, he's kind of like a red flag in the whole language of ufology right now. And it kind of sucks. Again, this is just my opinion, that Jeremy has attached himself to George Knapp, and I feel like it's tainting George Knapp's legacy, which kind of sucks. But George got to speak, and he said some interesting stuff at the hearing, and that's really cool. And then there are other servicemen who told their fascinating witness stories, and then they, showed some footage. And so I feel like it was a pretty successful hearing. Nothing has come of it as of yet. Again, it's only been a day, but there was another one last year with David Grush, and a whole bunch of crazy information came out. Like that's kind of like the iconic hearing that has happened, but nothing really has surfaced or been done about it, other than kind of keeping it in the news, which is great. But what's actually happening with disclosure, I don't know. I think it's just lots and lots of baby steps, and I don't know what it's going to take for us to finally get there. But I'm kind of over the disclosure thing, and I just want to talk to people and hope that they feel okay. And there was this woman that I came across this weekend who has had ongoing strange encounters at her home, and she's reached out to some organizations, and they've dismissed her. And
Oh,
that doesn't make her feel good. So she told me some stuff, and it does sound crazy, but I'm willing to listen. So we're setting up a time when I can go over there and talk to her and look at her footage and all that good stuff. And
and that's why I like to mention the granite sky, because you can
yeah,
to people, but not only them, but report it. Right?
yeah,
I've had a
yeah,
lot of different MUFON folks on here. I'm recently going to have some coming on again soon with Noe Torres and Ruben Orete. And they're going to talk about the Kayomi UFO incident and Mexico's Roswell, the other Roswell. So,
sure.
and there's like, oh gosh, Steve Feremi, he was on MUFON New England from up in
Yeah,
your neck of the woods.
yeah,
And report. I mean, we can't stress enough. If you see something weird, and if you're having any of these things happen like that lady, report it,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And the more people that can come forward with their encounters, we can try to maybe get more pieces of this puzzle and try to put something together. But
Yeah.
I've been doing it for quite a while now, and I only have more questions than answers. So even though we're getting more stories, I'm still not any closer to what's going on, other than, well, I believe it's something, and I don't know if it's extraterrestrial or ultra dimensional or interdimensional. I don't know.
What do
So
you think about the Skinwalker episodes with this sphere? Like, what the hell is that?
I can't say that I'm up to date on Skinwalker Ranch episodes, but that sounds. Can you tell me about it?
Well, Travis and the boys had, they were shooting rockets up and using the SLAM scan, the radar and stuff like that, but it's supposed to be terrestrial, right? So it's not supposed to go underground. So they got like a sphere underground, and they got a
Oh
sphere up in
wow,
the air, and then they
interesting.
shot off rockets, and there's something up in the air that blocked the laser and also blew up a rocket in midair. And they're
Wow,
getting all this missed data, and they have this other data that shows like a cone that would look like, to us, what we would understand as a wormhole. And
interesting.
they actually have a couple seconds missed time and all kinds of weird stuff that they've
Wow,
drilled out of the mesa that's not anything known to man. It's like, it
wow.
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
So,
that's wild. I'm
yeah,
gonna have to catch up on episodes. Wow.
that's another eggshell right there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But tell us more about, I had your link tree pulled up. I should pull it back
Oh,
up.
sure.
Or we can talk about another one of your stories in your humanoid encounters. Do you want to do one of those?
Sure. I forget what I have shared on the
We talked
episodes
about the
before.
frog.
Yeah, we talked about the frogs. Let me look at my chapters here.
And we've got,
Oh,
there's another one here, Abducted New England.
oh yeah, that was
I don't think I've pulled that one up yet. Yeah.
that's a documentary that I worked on. 2018 maybe, and then I did a companion piece book with it. So for a while, Abducted New England was available on Amazon Prime to watch, and then you could also buy a companion book with it that I wrote. And now you can watch Abducted New England for free on YouTube. So just search Abducted New England, Nomar Slevik, or Abducted New England UFO, and the documentary should come up. It's about a half hour, and you can watch it for free, which is kind of cool. And but another story to share out of the book, I'm also fascinated and pretty much scared by black-eyed kids. And black-eyed kids have been reported all over the world, and it kind of the modern.
Are they more like insects?
No, I would say they're they're almost like, some people think they're alien, but some of their lore sounds like vampiric in some aspects. Like they have to be invited in; they can't just come into your home.
Oh, that does sound
But
like a vampire. Yeah.
yeah, But some people think that they're aliens. Some people think that they're demons, and realistically, nobody knows what the hell they are. But the modern day telling of these stories or these encounters started in 1996 with Brian Bethel, and he had this encounter in Abilene, Texas, with these two kids, and
Oh
they
my
had
gosh, I live not like a stone throw from there.
wow. So these kids have completely black eyes, and they ask to be let in, or they ask for something, like, give us a ride, can you do this, can you let me inside? And he was in his car when this happened, and so it scared him, and he got the hell out of there. But then he shared his story online, and this was 1996, so this was a long time ago. This is like only when message boards were kind of a thing.
Yeah, that's actually the year I moved to Texas.
That's crazy. And it kind of went viral for its time. And since then, there's been thousands of reports all over the world. And there's been books and movies and TV shows like about black-eyed kids. And Maine is no different. And I found some black-eyed kid stories from Maine. And one of those stories happened in 2011 in Bangor, Maine. The home of Stephen King. And
Right.
this woman was home alone, 10 o'clock at night, and she was sitting in her living room, cat on her lap, and reading a book. Her husband was working a late shift. He was going to be home in a couple hours. So all of a sudden, the cat just stands up on her lap and hisses at the front door. And then the cat jumps off her lap and runs into another room. And, cats can be weirdos. So she's like, okay, freaking weirdo cat. And
But I had a cat that was like a dog that would do that. It would go to the door.
Maybe there was something there.
Oh, stop it.
So she's
right?
she's getting resettled and just about to get like her place in the book again when the doorbell rings, and it jumps her. So she gets up and she looks through the peephole and she doesn't see anybody. So she looks through the side window and can't see anybody outside. So she's like, what the hell? Are the kids playing ding dong ditch in the neighborhood? But they've never done that before,
Right, yeah.
So she's like, okay, whatever. So she turns around. She's going to go back into her chair. But then there's a knock, 3 knocks on the door.
Oh, it had to be 3, right?
Yeah. And it jumps her, it scares the hell out of her. And she doesn't even hesitate. She just whips open the door. And there's a screen door there. And the light from the living room falls on this kid standing on her porch, and he's looking down. And she's relieved in that moment, being like, oh, it's just a kid. And then she's like, well, wait a minute, it's 10 o'clock. What the hell is this kid doing here? And she's like, oh no, like something must be wrong. So the kid looks up at her, and he's got completely black eyes, no whites, no pupils. And he said, can I come in? And she's immediately filled with dread. And this kid is scaring the hell out of her. And it's almost like this kid Jedi mind tricked her. And she's feeling this pull of her hand to like open the door. And she's like having to fight it. And then all of a sudden she hears a hissing from her cat again. And she looks over, and the cat is sitting on a rug in front of the front door hissing at the kid. And this kind of snaps her out of her trance. And so she slams the door and locks it. And then she turns all the lights on. And she waits for her husband to get home. And when he gets home, he tells her everything and how like the cat saved her. And there was this creepy kid. And he believed her, because she has no reason to make any of this up. And to this day, she still thinks about the black-eyed kid. And for a while after that, even the cat would be skittish at night around the front door. And it would often sit there and like almost like it was waiting for it to come back. It never did, but pretty wild.
It makes you wonder, right? Like, what the heck is out there that just wanders around in the woods and stuff, right?
I know.
And
it's
like,
so strange.
There's so many different things about abductions and all these different humanoid things and different creatures. What's the most scariest one for you?
Geez, aliens and black-eyed kids and dogmen. I think dogmen that's a scary concept for me. It's essentially like a werewolf that never turns back,
Yeah.
into a human. And it seems like they're very angry. Every story I've ever found locally and other stories you hear about dogmen, they're always like violent or angry or upset in nature. They're negative. It's never a positive experience.
Right.
As opposed to some Bigfoot stories that do have some positivity to them. Even though that's pretty scary, there's a lot of stories about docile Bigfoots. And, there are some stories about docile dogmen, but not many. It's kind of the opposite of Bigfoot.
Yeah,
So yeah,
most of the UFO encounters, I mean, it depends. Like some of them are, I hear people say that they're benevolent,
sure.
but then the majority of them, I don't know if it's fueled by fear because of the movie Aliens and all the weird movies that
Sure,
we've
sure.
seen over the years, but
Yeah,
it makes you wonder, like, what is out
absolutely.
there?
And for me, being afraid of aliens, like when I think of that and when I actually like feel scared, that's I'm thinking about a situation where I'm sitting in my room and I wake up
Mm,
and there's an alien at the foot of my bed. That's terrifying. Or
yes.
I go to look out the window and there's an alien staring back at me. That's terrifying. Now, I've seen my fair share of UFOs, lights in the sky, and that's not scary. That's really cool for me and fascinating. And I even saw this weird creature at one point, which I actually think I shared on a previous episode. And that wasn't scary. That was just like, huh? What the hell did I just see? Like, so when I'm talking about being scared of aliens, it's like when I'm very vulnerable and they're like right there and you can't do anything about it type of
Right.
situation.
I've had a lot of people tell some horrific stories,
I
some
can
scary,
imagine.
scary stuff.
And
So, no,
Mike has some of those too.
he does. Yeah. And folks, if you want to learn more about Nomar Slevik and all the different people who he wrote about, check out his books. Nomar, do you want to tell folks where they can find your books? I'm going to try to pull up your link tree while you're talking about
Sure.
that there.
Yeah, all of my books are available on Amazon. So you can just do a search for my name there. My name's very unique. So when you search Slevik or Nomar Slevik, all of my stuff just comes up, which is cool. So you can search Amazon or you can just go to Google and search Nomar Slevik or Nomar Slevik UFOs and all my stuff will come up. I also have my own online store. It's slevikstore.company.site. And Jen is running a link tree address underneath our video here, and you can go there and see all my links. It'll take you to my documentaries, my music, all that good stuff, all my
Yeah, it's
books. You can
just
check them
like
out.
Linktree, except it's called allmylinks.com and then /Slevik,
That's it.
Slevik. And check him out there. And he's got all kinds of stuff there. He's got books. You've got your documentary stuff on there. We did not mention your podcast. Should we
Yeah.
give a shout out to I Want to Believe podcast?
Not really. It's kind of over. I had some issues with Spotify. Some stuff has changed in how
Who
they do things.
hasn't?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
sorry, Spotify.
yeah, yeah. So Um, I'm going to do one more podcast episode. It's going to be a Halloween episode, and then the series is done. It's been on for 8 years, and it'll be done after this Halloween episode. And then my girlfriend and I are going to um, do a new podcast where we talk about horror movies,
Ooh,
specifically horror movies from Tubi and
okay.
what you can watch there. So we'll be doing some movie reviews, and we're gonna try to do um, movie reviews for horror movies that are based on true stories, and try to tell the true story along with what the movie's about and all that good stuff. So
What's it going to be called again?
talk to me. uh,
That's
uh,
so cute. Talk
yeah,
to me
that's
to me.
yeah, that's a tentative title, and or we might not do any of it. Who knows?
It
you know.
sounds fun. So, folks,
Yeah,
you got to follow Nomar. He's a ball of fun. He got all kinds of really interesting, true stories.
yeah.
And all of his books, and some of them are some cool horror fiction. But check him out. Go to all of it's allofmylinks.com /Slevik, Slevik, and check him out. And we're going to leave you with some Bog Team music. Are you interested in some rap or rock or 80s or metal?
I say we do some hip hop.
Hip hop. Let's do it. You're listening in on UPRN, United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 FM on that Gulf. Thank you for tuning in to Nomar Slevik. On all streaming platforms. And Nomar, you've got your own stuff streaming, don't you?
I do.
On Instagram, TikTok?
You can find it anywhere you find music. Just type in my name and you'll find a bunch of songs that I have available.
Okay, yeah. When I do your teasers on TikTok and Insta, I'll use your music.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks again for being on the show. We really enjoyed having you on.
Thank you so much. I love coming on, Jen. Thank you.
Spectral whispers, questions they ask. EVP static, truth coming fast. Chasing shadows, we never come last. In the heritage town, tales time forgot. Legends in the air, tangled.